on my end, I see it.
All right. Good evening. Thank you for joining us for the webinar. Getting started promptly at 5 o'clock, and it is good to be here. And the topic, of course, tonight is your guide to Florida long-term care Medicaid. And of course, my name is Rep Deloach, and I'm here to take us through what it looks like if you're helping yourself or if you're helping your loved one dealing with long-term care and what comes with it. And you might have some questions, and we're here to take our time and go through it. What we really started, what I think about and what I go through with my clients on a daily basis, and just think about myself for the future. You know, I'm almost 50 years old. What does the long-term care look like for me? And I'll end up saying this: my hope as I age. And I haven't anyone, disagree with what I'm about to say, but my hope as I age is this: is I want to live a nice, long, healthy life. I want to stay at home and live independently as I can for as long as I can. And then I want to not wake up one morning. And, mostly what I mean is this: I want to live a nice long life. I don't want to have any horrible diseases. I don't want to get dementia, Parkinson's, MS, anything like that. And then nice, long, healthy life, and then not wake up one morning, have a nice, peaceful exit. Mostly, I want to skip the downhill slide that comes with aging. And just last week, I was talking with a family about this, and I kind of went through this scenario, and the fellow said, yeah, that was my dad, 99 years old, living alone. He went to sleep one night, and he didn't wake up the next morning. So I think we can all identify with that, as most of us want to skip the downhill slide that comes with aging, live nice, long, healthy life. And then that's kind of it. So when I say this is what I hope, this is what you may hope, this is what our loved one's going to hope, is not have to deal with the downhill slide that comes with the aging process. So tonight's agenda is we're going to talk about is, what is long-term care? Who will need long-term care? How much, of course, will long-term care cost? Using Medicaid to pay for long-term care? VA benefits in long-term care Medicaid planning. What can be done to protect assets in the event we're looking to access Medicaid? And then we're going to have a Q&A section at the end. And if you want to type your questions into the Zoom, there's a Q&A section on the Zoom. You're welcome to type your questions in. So at the end, we're going to go through these and answer the questions that we can. So anything that is not clear to you, anything that maybe I didn't quite explain as part of the seminar or anything like that, we're glad to take our time and go through it at the end. And this seminar basically takes about an hour or so. So just from a time frame perspective. And again, I thank y'all for coming out. Last week we moved it due to that cold front coming through, and there was a tornado not too far from our office. So anyway, it was good to be safe and good to cancel. So thank you for coming back. So I say, what do I know about these things? What do I know about Medicaid and VA benefits and long-term care, all these different things? So what do I know about these things? Is essentially, I've been practicing law for, hard to believe now, about 24 years. So I've been doing this a long time. This is really what I know. This is what I do. I'm a board certified specialist. The Florida Bar allows people to take a second bar exam. So I'm a board certified specialist in elder law, and I can basically hold myself out as an expert over most other attorneys. It's a very tough exam, but I'm glad to have been board certified for over 15 years now. Our law firm has completed thousands of Medicaid applications, and we have a large team to help our clients out. We have a wonderful website. If you're ever looking at these issues, maybe you found our webinar just through the website. So in essence, we've got a lot of things that we've helped people out with. I've been doing this for a long time. And I can ultimately say I'm part of the fabulous law firm at Deloach, Hofstra & Bonis. For those of us in the area where we are, just outside of St. Petersburg, we're in Seminole, Florida, Pinellas County, but our law firm has been, my father has founded the law firm in 1976. So we've been in existence for almost 50 years, and just wonderful group of people to be a part of. So it's not just me, but it's a wonderful team that I'm fortunate to be a part of and continue the legacy of, that was founded by my father, who's still alive and doing well, but I'm not doing as much practice of the law anymore. So, first of all, so what is long-term care? What we have in our system is really a difference between health insurance and long-term care, or health issues and long-term care issues. And long-term care is going to be specifically defined as needing help effectively with your activities of daily living. So we say in concept, we want to, we do our own things, while we're healthy and we don't have any diseases or conditions, we do all of our own activities of daily living. But as we age or go through a disease process, we need help with our activities of daily living, also known as our ADLs. But needing help with the ADLs essentially is the ADLs. There's 6 ADLs, or activities of daily living. It's transpiring, continence, toileting, bathing, dressing, eating. That's 5 and 6, and depending on how you look it up. But essentially is a fully functioning human being who does not need long-term care, of course, does all their activities of daily living by themselves. But as we age or go through the disease process, we need help with some of these. And generally speaking, long-term care is probably need help with 2 of the 6 ADLs. So again, you're living a healthy life as you're aging, hopefully. But there's a time where we may need help as we go through diseases, we go through dementia, we fall and break a hip or something like that. And we're probably at that time we need long-term care, which again is help with transferring continence, toileting, bathing, dressing, and eating. But also long-term care is going to be if you need help from a cognitive impairment. So literally before we came in here, just at my 3 o'clock hour, I was meeting with a couple of nice individuals, and their mom was 91 years old, was living at home, but she got dementia, and essentially she went wandering one night, and the police found her, and she had to then be placed in a facility. So while she was slowing down with her walking, she wasn't getting around very well. She really had needed help from a cognitive impairment. She could no longer live at home. So even though she's kind of fairly agile and active in her 90s, she could no longer live at home due to her wandering issues and whatnot. So at that point, she had a cognitive impairment that says she needed a placement in a facility, and then therefore that is also a need for long-term care. So what is long-term care? It's help with your ADLs or having a cognitive impairment that says you cannot live at home alone. So will you need long-term care? Let's say you, or will your loved one, and of course I don't have a crystal ball, but we can look directly to the statistics, and effectively, statistically 73%, or roughly 3 out of 4 of us over age 65 are going to need some form of long-term care before we pass away. So again, there's a portion of people that are not going to need long-term care. They're going to have a quick, or they have a passing where they don't need help with their ADLs, that just something happens to them. But roughly 3 out of 4 of us are going to need long-term care before we die. The average length of long-term care varies a little bit, but based upon your sex. But effectively, the average length of long-term care is 3 years. And roughly 20% of people that need long-term care will need it over 5 years. So we can imagine a good portion of us are going to need some form of long-term care before we pass away. And for us that need it, it's going to be around 3 years. And again, around 20% of the people that need it or need long-term care for over 5 years. And another wonderfully depressing statistic, it is what it is 50% of people over age 80 are going to develop some form of dementia. It is what it is. It's part of the biological process, but most of us, when we pass away, especially those over 80, are going to have some form of cognitive impairment before they die. So we say, will you need long-term care? We don't necessarily know, but the statistics are to say that the longer you live, the longer you're going to need some form of long-term care. So we say about if we're going to need long-term care, then, how much does long-term care cost? As we can imagine, if you're here watching this, you're obviously going to be concerned about the cost of long-term care, but how expensive is it? Home health care aid, if you have home health care, so you, me, mom, dad, all of us really want to live that nice, long, healthy life, and we really want to stay at home as we age. But sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes we have dementia. Sometimes that's not a great place to stay. Sometimes we can't live there for any numbers of reasons, but also sometimes we can't live there just for the cost. It could be $30 an hour. And I can give you a specific example of my own family's cost. I have a family member at home right now who is getting long-term care, and the cost is very, very expensive. It's over $20,000 a month for 24/7 care. So many of us can, many of us or most of us cannot afford to sustain the rate of long-term care at over $20,000 a month. But in essence, if you want to do that and you want to get home health care to help with that, then it's going to be very, very expensive. But what if we can't stay home? What if we had to go to an assisted living facility? Can say roughly the assisted living, it can be more than this, but it's roughly $3,000 to $6,000 per month. A dementia care assisted living facility, which we always say is a memory care unit. Sometimes people say, hey, well, mom's in a dementia care unit, but a dementia care facility is generally an assisted living facility, and the costs are going to be more expensive. It's going to probably be $4,000 to $8,000 per month. And then effectively there's quote unquote the nursing home and a skilled nursing facility. But skilled nursing facility is roughly $10,000 to $12,000 a month easily. So again, most of us are not going to be able to afford this long-term care, especially not for an extended length of time. Now, long-term care in the community, if you're not safe at home and or cannot afford private pay at home, you may need community placement. And what we're describing here is, again, we want to live at home as long as we can, but what if we can't and we can't afford it? Or what if it's just not a good environment? What if we're not safe at home? Then we'll probably need some form of placement in the community. And here what we say is the assisted living facility is, expensive. But it's like your own private apartment, food, medication management, and some essentials for the activities of daily living. And what I'm going through here is the people that have never done this before, they don't even know there's a difference between nursing home and assisted living and dementia care. So I'm roughly trying to describe what does it look like if you can't stay home, you don't have the money for long-term care, or you're not safe in any given event. So you have the regular assisted living facility. Again, it's like your own private apartment. And just before I came in here, meeting with a couple of people, and their mom did get placed. This is the one that was wandering down the street and the police were called. She did get placed and she likes it there, and they just described it to her mom, this is your own private apartment, and she's been very accepting of her move. So there's regular assisted living. Then there is, and again, I say mostly about assisted living, it's mostly able to get out of bed and not medically fragile. So you can kind of get out of bed and do things on your own. After that, there's the memory care assisted living facility. This can, again, it's going to be a locked dementia unit, but for those who may be exit seeking and may need more help than a regular assisted living facility. So there's regular assisted living, and essentially there's a memory care assisted living facility. And then there is the nursing home, and also it's called the skilled nursing facility. In our industry, we call it the SNF, the skilled nursing facility. And for those who are medically fragile, require 24/7 nursing and or require a two-person lift to get out of bed. So kind of if you couldn't stay home due to a number of reasons, you probably want to be in an assisted living facility. It's nice. It's like your own private apartment, but the more help we need, then the more likely we're not even going to be able to stay in assisted living. As we can imagine, the more help we need, the more expensive it's going to be. So what if we couldn't stay home? What does this look like? And here's just a primer on the difference between the different types of facilities and kind of the rough share of cost. So the next week thing we have is, does Medicare pay for long-term care? And I think most of us here, if you're in here, does Medicare pay for your long-term care? The basic answer is no. Medicare is health insurance, and effectively our system, our government, everything we've ever done is health insurance. Healthcare is not long-term care. They're different things. So Medicare, again, is health insurance, and health insurance doesn't cover the cost of long-term care. Only long-term care insurance covers the cost of long-term care. Medicare does not pay for long-term care costs at all. What happens, though, it does pay for rehabilitative care. And rehabilitative care is after a 3-day hospital stay, usually after a fall, stroke, etc. And we're going to go through what this looks like a little bit more specifically. So people get confused, as Medicare does pay for rehabilitative care after a 3-day hospital stay, usually after a stroke, fall, etc. And it pays up to 100 days of rehab in a skilled nursing facility. So Medicare does pay for this, but it's not long-term care, and it's rehabilitative care. And there are copays for days 21 through 100 of roughly $200 a day. So there are copays after the first 20 days. So, so we're going to talk about what are our ways to pay for long-term care is self-pay. Obviously, if you have the money, you have the resources, you can self-pay and pay for your long-term care with your own money. And there's also financial insurance products that we're going to get into just a little bit. There are government benefits, obviously. It's going to be VA benefits and long-term care Medicaid benefits. And there's a combination of all these things. So in certain scenarios, sometimes some people could be eligible for Medicaid and they could be eligible for VA benefits, for instance. So anyway, there's all kinds of different ways to pay for care, but we're going to look at how do we do that to a large extent. Now, the next questions we have is, does Medicaid pay for long-term care? And the answer is maybe. So Medicare definitely doesn't pay for your long-term care. Does Medicaid pay for your long-term care? And the basic answer is maybe. So we're going to talk about the caveats and what does that look like is the nursing home. So if you, me, mom, dad, whoever it is, if we end up in the nursing home and if we run out of money and we qualify effectively, the nursing home is there's going to be a nursing home bed available for us that's going to accept Medicaid for the most part. So if we run out of money and qualify, then Medicaid is essentially going to pay for the nursing home. There's going to be caveats to that, of course, but essentially there's going to be a nursing home bed available for us. It's going to pay for a semi-private room, and it's going to be subject to availability. So here in Pinellas County, there are 83 nursing homes in Pinellas County, and all 83 nursing homes accept Medicaid. So it's not an issue. Effectively, if you end up in the nursing home, you're probably going to be able to get onto Medicaid, subject to obviously all kinds of issues and rules that we're going to go into. But that nursing home that you may be in may not accept Medicaid. They may be full, but essentially there may be no room at the end. But essentially, if you're in the nursing home, if you have a stroke, if you have a fall, if you have a car accident, and if you run out of money, essentially Medicaid's going to be there to pay for it in a semi-private room. And it may not be the facility that you're in, but there will probably be a local facility that will help pay for your care, Medicaid. Now, the maybe comes in, though. The maybe is if you're in assisted living, you're trying to get Medicaid at home. And essentially, Medicaid is not very good at paying for care outside of the nursing home. And that's where the maybe comes in. So essentially, there are strict financial rules to access Medicaid. We're going to get into details on shortly. So again, Medicaid, yes, for the nursing home, Medicaid maybe for the assisted living rules. Either way, there's strict financial rules to access it. And I will say this, is Medicaid does not dictate where you get care, but the facility must accept Medicaid. So sometimes people say, hey, if I get my mom onto Medicaid, is Medicaid going to say where my mom goes? Or are they going to be dictating, oh, the Medicaid, you can only go to this facility? And the basic answer is no. Medicaid does not dictate where you get care, but the facility must accept Medicaid. And again, for a nursing home standpoint, most facilities accept it, period. So there is, and we're going to get into more details, is there's home and community-based Medicaid for assisted living or in-home care. So again, the nursing home is always going to be there, Medicaid nursing home. And then there's HCBS Medicaid, and there's going to be essentially very similar programs, but home and community-based Medicaid for assisted living and in-home care is Medicaid is not only for the nursing home. There's the Medicaid HCBS program, and it's going to have the same financial requirements that we're going to get into in just a minute, because it pays for the assisted living facility. The problem is this. And partly is the assisted living facility Medicaid provides a subsidy of only $1,200 to $1,600 a month for the assisted living facility. And we're going to go into some more detail here and there, but you could end up being in a $7,000 a month assisted living facility. And this facility may accept Medicaid, but Medicaid's only can provide a subsidy maybe of $1,200 to $1,600 a month or so, maybe more, maybe less, but essentially, if you have dementia in a high-end facility that's very expensive, then essentially Medicaid can be helpful, but it's not going to pay for the full boat of what it's actually going to cost. And there is in-home care available, but it's certainly not 24/7 care, and it's going to be very scant, to say the least. It's difficult to get Medicaid to pay for in-home care, although it is available. Now, essentially, there's a wait list to get HCBS Medicaid. And essentially what they do is they triage for health care before we even get to the financial test. So kind of big picture, if you end up in the nursing home and if you run out of money or you hire an elder law attorney to protect money and get on Medicaid, which we'll talk about, then you're basically going to be able to get onto Medicaid. But if you're in an assisted living facility and run out of money, there's no guarantee that Medicaid is going to accept you. What they do is the system is built to triage for health care benefits before we even get to the financial test. So again, if you're in the nursing home, then Medicaid's going to be there. If you're in the assisted living facility or at home, Medicaid may not be there. And there's a number of different factors to it, but what they do is they triage you based upon your healthcare needs before they even get to the financial test. So that's why it essentially says, does Medicaid pay for your long-term care? And the answer is maybe. So let's talk about assets. We've already said, and you already know, is Medicaid is a needs-based program, meaning the government says, hey, what are your assets? What are your income in order to qualify? And we're going to talk a little about assets in Medicaid. So Medicaid will help pay for your care if you qualify financially. And assets in Medicaid, so what they do is Medicaid looks at your assets and it says is, hey, how much money do you have before Medicaid's going to help pay for your long-term care? And there's essentially countable assets, and countable assets are going to be the asset limit for a married couple is $156,000 in countable assets in order for one spouse to get onto Medicaid. So if there's a husband and wife, and the wife needs care in the nursing home, in order for Medicaid to pay for care in the nursing home, then the spouse at home or they're together allowed to have $156,000 in countable assets. Not for both of them, it's for just for one of them, but for one of them to get Medicaid, it's against $156,000 level. And it's only $2,000 for a single person. So a single person ends up in the nursing home, which is the easiest way to describe it, is they're only allowed to have $2,000 in countable assets in order to get onto Medicaid. Now, countable assets are going to be banks, bank accounts, stocks, cash value of life insurance, kind of anything really. So if there's money in the bank, if there's stocks, if there's bonds, mutual funds, if there's cash value of life insurance policy, those all goes into the means testing to determine where you are from an asset standpoint and how you're going to, if you're going to get Medicaid. People sometimes say, well, geez, I'm on my mom's bank account and is half the money mine? And the basic answer is no. Unless you put your own money in it and you can say that it's your money, then it's all going to be mom, dad. It's all going to be the applicant's funds. The assets excluded from Medicaid are very important. So really we look towards all assets, but there's a home. They don't care about the home value. And if they don't care, you can have a $2 million home if you're married, but a single person could have a home of up to $713,000 in value. May we all be so fortunate to have a home worth $713,000, but essentially if your home exceeds that for a single person, then you're gonna have big problems on getting Medicaid. So assets excluded from Medicaid is you're allowed to own a home of up to $713,000 in value if you're single, and you're also allowed to own a car and a burial accounts, etc. So countable assets are going to be almost everything that you own. There's going to be an exception that we're going to get to in just a second. This is the asset test. Again, Medicaid is not going to pay for your care unless your assets are below these levels. Now, income in Medicaid is there's an income cap, and this is very, very stupid, but essentially this, if your income exceeds $2,829 per month, then Medicaid is not going to pay for your care. There's a way around it, which we get into, but essentially there's not just an asset test for Medicaid, but there's also an income test. And in the event your asset or your income exceeds $2,829 per month, then you're allowed to get, not allowed to, you really need to get a qualified income trust needed if your income exceeds it. So again, we can roughly say Medicaid has an asset test and Medicaid has an income test. This is the income cap, $2,829 per month of the gross income. And if your income exceeds that, there's a legal way around it. In our world, we call it a qualified income trust. Interestingly, though, this is really for a single person. If there is a spouse at home, in our world, we call them the community spouse. The at-home spouse's income is unlimited. So, we're going to go into some more details of that. But if there's one spouse at home, they could have income of $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $10,000 per month. And the only thing they look at the income is the income of the applicant spouse, and that's where the income cap comes in. IRAs, when I said earlier, there's an exception to that rule, is IRAs are generally considered income for Medicaid purposes, and they're not considered assets. So a single person applying for Medicaid could have $300,000 in IRAs, 400,000, 500,000. And IRAs are considered income for Medicaid purposes, not assets. Now, essentially, you have to be taking money out of the IRAs to consider it an income, but essentially, IRAs are considered more or less kind of like a pension scheme. And if you're taking money out of your IRA itself is income. And from an income perspective, then it's not an asset. Now, there is what's called the patient's responsibility. So when you're in, just for instance, you're in the nursing home, your income is at $2,829 per month, whether your income is $2,000 a month or $5,000 a month. If you want to be on Medicaid, you must pay for all of your income to the facility. And so a single person's income all goes to the skilled nursing facility or to the nursing home. You're allowed to keep $160 per month. But the one kind of example is that, and it gets very complicated very easy quickly, is that there is what's called spousal diversion, which we'll get in, I think we get into it a little bit. But the spouse at home, if their income is low, they can keep some of the applicant spouse's income, but it's very complicated. But it's very easy to say from a single person standpoint, a single person, all their income goes to the nursing home, they get to keep $160 a month as their personal needs allowance. Medicaid homestead. Your home is protected from Medicaid no matter how long you live in the nursing home. So people say, can the nursing home take my mom's home? Or is the state of Florida going to force my mom to sell the home, or what have you? And literally just earlier today, the family came in. Mom didn't have a whole lot of money, but she had a home worth over $300,000. So they're going to say is, hey, if mom gets on Medicaid, is the state of Florida going to take your home? And essentially, your home is protected from Medicaid no matter how long you live in the nursing home. Medicaid can also not take it upon your death. There are some exceptions to that rule, but essentially Medicaid cannot take it upon your death with the right planning. But we can say is rent, and we can say that renting the home is difficult, problematic, but possible under the right circumstances. So again, if you're in the nursing home, and roughly speaking, if you're a single person, all of your income must go to the nursing home and pay for your long-term care. You only get to keep $160 per month. So why is the home, we can say is that holding onto the home is problematic, because then the family is going to have to take up the pay for the cost of the home, because all of your income, if you're in the nursing home in particular, or even if the assisted living facility, essentially all of your income is going to go to the facility, and the family's going to have to pay for the home. Medicaid does not let you keep money to pay for the cost of the home. That's going to be something that's going to be difficult, and the family's going to have to pick it up. So it's also there's a time matters where it's difficult if the family doesn't live in town, who's watching, the lawn, what happens if the toilet breaks, that type of stuff. So it's over time, it's difficult, but again, you're allowed to hold on to the home until you pass away, and then Medicaid can't even not take it upon your death for the most part. Gifting Medicaid. Most people know this, but if you give money away, then Medicaid does not like that very well. And in the state of Florida, Medicaid has a 5-year look back period. Most people have heard it, but you can't give your money away within 5 years of applying for Medicaid. So obviously the state of Florida says, hey, if there's an asset cap and you can't have these assets, the state of Florida doesn't want you giving it away to protect it from the nursing home. So essentially you can't give money away within 5 years of applying for Medicaid. So essentially assets cannot be gifted away. Now, there are some examples, or there are some exceptions to that, but you cannot give away assets within 5 years of the Medicaid application. There is a $17,000 a year annual exclusion, but you still cannot give money away. So sometimes people say, and I had this happen once where the family said, oh, we went to the CPA, and the CPA said that mom could give away $10,000 a year to the kids. But gifting under the federal estate and gift tax rules has nothing to do with Medicaid. Medicaid says you cannot give money away within 5 years of the Medicaid application. If you want to learn more about that, you can Google it. Our website comes up and explains it a lot more. But basically, you can't give your money away. Don't do it. Now, Veterans Administration and long-term care. And I want to go back to this one time, is gifting in Medicaid. I always like this example. One time, the family, the daughter came in and said, oh my gosh, my mom's in the nursing home, and the social worker at the nursing home came to me and said, I didn't tell you this, but you need to go take all your money out of mom's bank account. And the daughter went to the bank and took $150,000 out of the bank, and the bank informed the Department of Elder Affairs and said this daughter was exploiting her mom and she could go to jail. So essentially, don't try to give your money away. Essentially, there are legal ways to protect assets, which we're going to get into. Just don't give them away without the right advice. Veterans Administration and long-term care, we just briefly touch on this. There is a cash benefit for long-term care for veterans who qualify. So essentially, the VA is there to help out our veterans in the right situation. If you serve 90 plus days of active duty service, one of which was in a wartime period. The wartime period is going to be, of course, World War II. It's going to be Korea, the Korean conflict, and Vietnam. If you had service during a wartime period, one of which is active duty, or 90 days active duty, one day is in a wartime period, and it had a discharge that was other than dishonorable, then you can apply for a program that we call a pension. And the pension program is also known as aid and attendance. I said the asset limitation is 140. They just updated, so it's around $150,000. But just like Medicaid, in order to get the VA benefits program called pension or aid and attendance, it's called aid and attendance, also known as pension, then the VA looks for your asset limitation of around $150,000. But essentially, this program is available for veterans, and they consider you needy if your assets are less than $150,000, but it's based upon high ongoing medical needs, such as assisted living care. So you're in the assisted living facility at $6,000 per month. The VA can help with that with a program known as pension, again, also known as aid and attendance, and that can help significantly. And it generally ranges from around $2,300 a month to $1,400 a month. So this can help out with the veteran, and it can also help out with the surviving spouse of a wartime veteran. So it's a married veteran can get a little over $2,300 a month, but the surviving spouse of a wartime veteran can get $1,400 per month. So veterans benefits can work in congruence with getting Medicaid benefits, but essentially it's this, is if your loved one is in an assisted living facility, maybe Medicaid, but it's not likely, then there are VA benefits that you need to worry about. We mostly think about this as if your loved one's in an assisted living facility, then VA benefits can be wonderful. So it's for the veteran, a married or single veteran, or the surviving spouse of a wartime veteran can get a little over $1,400 per month. So you need to know about this, and in our world, we call it pension, also known as aid and attendance. Now, crisis Medicaid planning. So we're going to get into that detail. And just here's our typical example. Earlier, I said we're going to go through some examples, but Mary is age 90 and she needed more help at home. So this is, let's be realistic, this is what we see on a daily basis. And it's literally what our client said a couple hours ago. We're in here. His mom was living at home, needing more help slowing down. You know, she's 90 years old. And here, mom, Mary, falls and she goes to the hospital. And from the hospital, she stays there for 3 days. Then she goes out to a rehabilitation facility, a skilled nursing facility, to get care. And what we know is that Medicare pays for up to 100 days. Now, they rarely, maybe 1 out of 100 times or 5 out of 100 times, maybe they'll actually pay for 100 days. Most of us get stronger getting rehab that 100 days, but Medicare pays for up to 100 days, but it never goes, people don't need rehab that long. So after a 3-day in the hospital stay, Medicare can pay for up to 100 days. What happens after that, though? So Mary fell. She probably should not have been living at home. She's 90, and she goes to the hospital, and she's getting forgetful. She's kind of slowing down. So once she goes to the hospital and goes out to rehab to get stronger, what's going to happen when rehab ends? And effectively, we really say is there's 3 main choices. You get home care, you get care at home, you get care in an assisted living facility, or you had to stay in a nursing facility, a skilled nursing facility for long-term care. And what the family is thinking about, of course, is, geez, mom was really slowing down. We tried to get her out of the home. We didn't know what to do. Mom didn't want to leave the home. None of us would. But effectively, Mary falls, goes to the hospital, and kind of the wheels are now in motion, probably where Mary's probably not going to be safe at home anymore anyway. So what's the family going to do, and how do we pay for it? So that's the question is, wherever she goes, how do we now pay for long-term care? And here we're going to talk a little about crisis Medicaid planning. So Mary in long-term care. Mary's health is deteriorated. Maybe she must stay in the nursing home, or maybe she could go out to assisted living facility. And here's a specific example of how long-term care planning works with Medicaid and how we can protect money. We know in order to get Mary onto Medicaid, she's only allowed to have $2,000 in assets, and her home is worth less than $713,000 in this example. But we know that she's too old, she's frail, she's forgetful, she's not going to be safe at home alone, and she's got $80,000 in the bank. What we do know is that if we don't do anything, Mary's money will disappear to the nursing home. It's all going to be gone. And then what happens? So essentially, this is what can be done. Is we know that we can't give the money away. Mary's within the 5-year look back period, obviously. We can't give the money away. So what do? What can an elder law attorney help do to help protect money? Is we can pay $80,000 in cash. So this is kind of roughly speaking, $80,000 in cash. It may be appropriate to pay a caregiver in advance to help Mary out. And this could be legal in our situation. It's called a personal services contract. And you can literally pay money to a caregiver to help Mary out. And the payments to a caregiver, again, is called a personal services contract. Mary, we've legally lowered her assets down to less than $2,000. Mary is now legally able to get Medicaid to help pay for the nursing home or maybe pay for the assisted living facility. There are multiple ways to protect assets, always with an attorney's advice, but essentially it's this. It's Mary is now in the nursing home. We need Medicaid. Can we get Medicaid? We can get Medicaid very quickly. And remember, if we don't do anything, the money's all going to disappear. Mary's going to be broke in 6, 7, 8 months at best. But you can hire an elder law attorney, and the elder law attorney has legal ways to protect assets. This isn't the only way, but this is one of the many ways to one of the few ways to protect assets from, quote unquote, the nursing home. Multiple ways to do this, always with an attorney's advice. This is an example of crisis Medicaid planning. Here's an example of a married couple, Bill and Doris. And Bill and Doris, both 88 years old, living at home. Joint assets around $350,000 in bank accounts and CDs. The home of $400,000. Bill's income of $3,000 per month from Social Security and pension, and then Doris's income of roughly $1,500 per month. So it's kind of our typical example, living at home, and they've got some money and some decent resources. But we know Doris is getting dementia. It's just problematic. Like I said, most of us are going to end up with some form of dementia before we pass away. And then Doris falls and breaks a hip. And this is a very typical scenario. 60% of the time people end up needing long-term care. 60% of the time is after a fall. So again, Doris falls, she breaks a hip, and of course she's going to end up in the same situation as Mary. And what we know is that in this horrible situation is, Doris is now in the nursing home. Bill and Doris have roughly $300,000 in assets. And I think I may have messed up the math. The math just changed a little bit. But they're allowed to have $156,000 together. And essentially, the assets are a little bit over. Bill was told he could only have $156,000 in assets in order to qualify for Medicaid. And really, their total assets are $300,000. And Medicaid is not going to step in and pay for Doris's care because they've got $300,000 in assets. But luckily, Bill and Doris have a good elder law attorney by the name of Rep DeLoach. And jokingly, but kind of, there are legal ways to protect money within the 5-year look-back period, as we've already said. Bill can lend a trusted son money under very specific circumstances. Bill can protect money without giving it away. And that's the thing that you need to know is there are legal things that can be done to protect assets within the 5-year look-back period with the advice of a good elder law attorney. But here, Bill loaned a trusted son $140,000 in a structured promissory note. The structured promissory note is a legal way of making money disappear from a Medicaid perspective. And now Doris can get onto Medicaid without Bill spending $150,000 on her care. This is one of many ways to protect assets from the nursing home in order to get Doris onto Medicaid. And a good elder law attorney like our law firm will know how to the legal ways to protect assets. This is one of many strategies to protect assets, and this is only available for married couples. It's not available for a single person. So again, Doris is in the nursing home. Instead of paying $12,000 per month to the nursing home, she can't come home, she wouldn't be safe, for instance, then Bill can go to a good elder law attorney like our law firm. We know how to legally get Doris onto Medicaid without having to spend all that money. So, but what if what Mary wants to stay at home? Medicaid is not only helpful for the nursing home, but I can just roughly describe it's the easiest program to qualify. It's the easiest program to get. But Medicaid can help pay for in-home care and assisted living. Again, the financial requirements are going to be the same, but there's a wait list. And the wait list is Medicaid doesn't, basically say if you're in the nursing home already, you're sick, you need care, and you qualify for Medicaid from a healthcare standpoint. But there's a wait list for people not in the nursing home, whether they're at home or in assisted living facility, and we call it the Medicaid wait list. And what Medicaid does is it triages people taking the sickest people first. So again, they look at your healthcare needs, and again, your healthcare needs are already considered very high if you're in the nursing home. But what if you're home, or what if you're in assisted living? Then Medicaid basically triages, and the triage process is called the wait list. Essentially, and again, and I say this is that Medicaid can provide for only a $1,600 a month subsidy, maybe more, maybe less, but kind of not a lot of money that's available. Having an attorney is vital in any case. So our law firm can help walk you through the process of getting Medicaid, whether your loved one is in the nursing home, in assisted living, or at home. But it would say is having an elder law attorney is vital in any case, because you need to know what you don't need, what you don't know. So I'm going to touch into this. I jumped into crisis Medicaid planning, but what we learned over many years is many of the attendees of the seminar are going to be thinking about, geez, I'm not in the nursing home right now. I'm 75 years old. What should I be doing to plan for my own long-term care now? So we're going to talk about pre-planning, not just for, it's not that your loved one has dementia, you're helping your mom out, but you're thinking, hey, I'm 70, 75, 80. What should I be doing now to protect my assets for the nursing home? And we're going to talk a little about is pre-planning. We say this is non-crisis Medicaid planning. So pre-planning for Medicaid is many who attend the seminar are thinking about planning many years from now. So what should you do now to help have the best estate plan, preserve your care options, protect assets for inheritance purposes? This is what we're thinking about, is that, hey, what if you're trying to leave a legacy to the family? If you have family members that you're trying to protect money for, that's what pre-planning can be part of. Sometimes people come in, they say, geez, I'm trying to protect money from the nursing home. All right, well, where's the money go when you die? Well, it's all going to charity. Well, if it's all going to charity, you're probably not going to need, you're probably not going to need to protect money from the nursing home. But if there's pre-planning for Medicaid, we're going to talk about that in good detail. So they're basically, the basic estate planning is a must. So the first start with this is, how do you pre-plan for Medicaid? Is you always get your estate plan in order. Always do your basic estate plan. So that is the first step, step 1A. How do we protect money from the nursing home? Is you get your estate plan in order first. So in this situation, you have your trust, you have your will, you have a power of attorney. And all of these things are the most basic things. But what if you had a stroke? What if you got dementia? The family members that you know and that you trust must have the ability to protect money from the nursing home, but you have to do all your pre-planning first. So the first step in getting protecting money from the nursing home and pre-planning is always do your estate plan. And the key to getting your estate plan done is you don't do online forms. You don't go to non-elder law attorneys. You don't go to your attorney down the street who does criminal law and they do bankruptcy and family law and wills. You always go to a good elder law attorney to get your basic estate planning done. And whether that's a trust or will, but powers of attorney, you always do this. This is the first step in pre-planning for a long-term care Medicaid. So after your estate plan is in place, you really have two main choices. If you want to do advanced planning to protect money from the nursing home, after estate plan is in place, you have two main choices. And the two main choices are gifting and irrevocable trust planning, which we're going to talk a little bit about, and then also financial pre-planning. So after you do your basic estate plan, then you have two main choices if you want to try to protect money from the nursing home. And essentially, we're doing this 5 years before you get sick. So the first planning option is gifting. And gifting is gifting before the 5-year Medicaid look-back period. So what should you be doing now to protect money from the nursing home after your estate plan is in order? and irrevocable trust planning is available. What you do is you give money to an irrevocable trust, and you have to do this 5 years before you get sick. And this is preferred as you give assets to an irrevocable trust. The trust holds assets for your lifetime. Upon your death, the children receive the asset income tax free. And why would you do this? You do this if you're trying to protect money for an inheritance for kids. So you're not trying to do an outright gift now. That's not a good thing for tax purposes, and you give up all control of your money, but you can set up an irrevocable trust 5 years before you need it. And then that can give in ways to protect money for an inheritance for the kids' purposes. So why would you do this? You're doing this again to protect money as an inheritance for the kids. I'm going to give you an example of gift planning. As Sally is age 80, she's looking like, and she's in very good health. She's worth $500,000 in the bank, stocks, etc. So Sally's saying, you know what? I trust my kids. I've done good planning. I'm in good health. What if I want to preserve assets? It's an inheritance for the kids. I've protected me and my husband have worked long in our entire life. We're trying to protect money and an inheritance for the kids. Here, Sally has trustworthy children, and she's comfortable in giving up control of the assets. And here, 5 years before he gets sick is the ideal, is an irrevocable trust is created where Sally gives $400,000 in stock to the trust. Sally is not a beneficiary of this trust. That's just the key. She can get income from the trust if she wanted to, so she retains an income interest, but she can't get money out of the trust for her health or anything like that. The money is held for her lifetime, and it goes to the children tax-free upon her death. So this is an example of irrevocable trust planning, that money is protected 5 years after she gave it away, and then it's held with VA benefits after 3 years. The VA has a 3-year look-back period. So here's an example again where someone is healthy, they've got money, they want to give money away to protect it as an inheritance for the kids, and they have trustworthy children. This is a specific example of irrevocable trust planning where it could be helpful. Now, sometimes people say, geez, my mom should have given all of her money away to protect it from the nursing home, but you have to be willing to give up control of your money. And not many of us are really willing to do that. Many people say, I don't trust my kids, or maybe I don't want to give it away. But essentially, irrevocable trust planning can be very good in the right situation. And here's an example to me where it looks. So if Sally was 60 years old, there's no way I'd be telling her to put all this money away to protect it from the nursing home. And if Sally's 95 years old, I say, what are the odds that Sally doesn't need long-term care in the next 5 years? So again, Sally's at age 80, she's in good health, and she has money and trustworthy children. This is an example of where irrevocable trust planning could be helpful. Option number 2 of pre-planning is after your estate plan's in order is financial pre-planning. And essentially is financial planning is really a good option in the right situation. It's financial planning instead of gift planning. Essentially, as you retain control of your money, you have a better choice of care, and there's government tax incentives to do this. So I can say I'm not a financial planner. I'm not here to sell anyone a financial product. But essentially, if you talk to a financial planner to learn about long-term care insurance, and I will say this, is long-term care insurance gets a bad rap, and it's not very good in the right situation. But essentially, there's what we call is asset-based long-term care. If you want to Google that, you can put money into IRA annuities and life insurance policies that have long-term care insurance riders inside of them. And a good financial planner can talk with you about it. It's not traditional long-term care where you pay $5,000 a year, but there are, if you have a $500,000 IRA, you can put $150,000 of that IRA into an annuity. And the annuity can have financial benefits that help pay for your long-term care under very specific rules. You know, I'm not here to sell you that, but essentially, instead of giving your money away or looking to do that, you could look at doing financial planning. You probably need to do this before age 80. That's when the products really are most effective, and mostly there's no underwriting that occur after age 80. So again, not just giving money away, but if you're in your 60s in particular, you could look at investing some of your money in financial tools that provide for long-term care insurance inside of them. And if you need any help with that, we have referral sources that can help do this, and they know this backwards and forwards. So meet your elder law attorneys. Of course, myself, the handsome looking fellow on the screen there. There's also another attorney at our law firm. We have 2 in-person offices to serve you. Our main office here in Seminole, just outside of St. Petersburg. And we also have an office in Sun City Center in Hillsborough County, but we offer statewide representation. So if you're an out of area, you are able to contact us and we're able to assist you remotely via conference call or Zoom. The state of Florida, reality is that where you live, as long as you have a good power of attorney, if you're dealing with your own care or the care of a loved one, then we can always help no matter where you live. But we do have 2 offices here. So how can we help you? How can I help you? Is we're here to discuss long-term care strategies that are best for you. We can do your estate planning. Very important. We said this, do your estate planning as far as preparing for it as always do your will, trust, power of attorney, all those different things. We're glad to help deal with that, to prepare for your future. We have a social worker on staff as a care advocate. So many people are surprised, but we are a commitment to our long-term care, our elderly clients. We have a care advocate on our team to help our clients deal with the legal and healthcare aspects of the aging process. And we do long-term care crisis planning as well. Of course, we know how to protect assets if your loved one is in the nursing home or maybe in the nursing home soon. To hear from our actual clients about their experience on working with us, please check out our online reviews. Frankly speaking, I'm very fortunate to be surrounded by a loving, caring staff, and we've helped out many, many people over many years. And many of them have taken the time to write about our care and our services online and how we've helped many people out through many difficult situations, no matter where they live in the state of Florida. So how this works. And what we do is, if you'd like, we schedule a 1-hour strategy session to help with us via Zoom, telephone call, or in person. During the meeting, we will review your current estate plan. We'll identify your concerns, whether you do pre-planning with long-term care insurance products, or whether you want to give money away 5 years before you get sick, or just your power of attorney is 10 years old and you need to update it. And we can assess your needs, desire to protect assets. Plus, we will answer all the questions you have about your unique situation. What are you going through? We're glad to help figure it out. If we haven't seen it before, we'll figure it out. But we've seen a lot of different things over the many years. We have a lot of experience helping out families that are looking to deal with their own long-term care. At the end of our time together, you'll know what legal documents you need. You'll have a better understanding of long-term care journey and what steps you need to take now, if any. You'll know the exact amount of your investment to achieve your goals. And you'll have peace of mind knowing that you took the correct steps to protect yourself and your loved ones for what's coming ahead. So at the end of the time is you're going to get peace of mind knowing you came to a good attorney to help you figure out what's going to happen next. After our meeting is, if you decide you want us to help any further, we will develop a plan with recommendations, and we'll prepare any legal documents that are necessary. And we will work to protect assets when appropriate and available. Not everyone needs to be on Medicaid. There would be situations where it makes sense. There are situations where it doesn't make sense. But effectively, we can work to protect assets from the nursing home, from the cost of long-term care when appropriate and available. And most importantly, we'll walk you through the process from start to finish. So our gift to you, free. I recently finished my book and I've got to update it for the 2024 figures. But for those attending this seminar, we're going to send you a download, your guide to Florida long-term care Medicaid. That's 2023 figures, numbers. We're updating that as we speak, or not quite as we speak. But we're going to send you our book that goes through a lot of this information, talks about some of the specific ways to legally protect assets, talks about a lot of different things the seminar's talked about. We're glad to send that to you free of charge so that you can share with anyone that you may know. We then also provide an information gathering session with a member of our legal team. So if you'd like to, if you would like to set up a meeting with us, then we provide an information gathering session. And then we're also going to send you a link to this video recording so you can watch it again and share with anyone that you feel is appropriate. Think that they may need to learn if you're, the power of attorney, but you want to get your sister involved, then essentially feel free to share the seminar and our book as well. And for those attending the seminar, what we do is we normally charge $400 for our office consultation. And what we do is we charge 50% off. We give a $200 savings. So we charge $200 to attend our a meeting with me. And we're glad to review your situation and make any recommendations of things you should be doing now to prepare for your own long-term care Please note your consultation fee will be applied to any legal work you choose to hire a fee. So if you pay us $200 and we make your recommendations for updating a power of attorney or doing crisis Medicaid planning, we apply your fee of $200, again, a 50% value. We're giving 50% off for attending the seminar today and learning the information that's here. But if you do hire us, then we apply any office consultation fee to any future legal work. So who is this for? Really, there's two groups of people. Those dealing with a loved one facing imminent long-term care. Here we must deal directly with the elder or the elder's power of attorney. So if you're thinking about dealing this with your mom or your dad or your spouse, we need to deal directly with that person's power of attorney, because it's only the power of attorney that has the ability to help out their loved one. So people say, well, geez, I'm trying to help my mom figure it out. Well, if your mom's trying to look towards long-term care, then the attorney needs to deal directly with the elder, because the elder is always our client. Or we have to deal with the elder's power of attorney. So if you're facing imminent long-term care, we're glad to help talk about that. But we're also here to help looking for those looking to pre-plan for the care. And maybe you're not likely to need long-term care within 5 years, but want to make sure you've explored all of your options. You say, maybe my spouse is getting forgetful or my mom's getting forgetful. What should we be doing now to protect money from the nursing home to help pay for the long-term care? But essentially, the key is to review your current estate plan and see what changes should be made now. Realistically, these things, estate planning, powers of attorney, wills, trust, these are things that are all easy to put off. They're all easy to procrastinate. Unless you sat down with a good elder law attorney recently, maybe these documents are out of date and you need to have them reviewed. And we're glad to do that as part of a review of your own personal situation. Now, I will say this, if you did your documents with our law firm, we're very proud of the documents that we've done. So unless you've done things, if you've done any planning with us in the past 10 years, our documents we've done are very good and you have good powers of attorney. But again, we're glad to sit down and with you and review your estate plan, even if you've worked with us, because we've helped out many thousands of people in the Seminole and St. Petersburg area. So now, what's the catch? So here's our funny little thing. What's the catch? The catch here is there is no catch. We're glad to have the opportunity to sit down, review your situation, review your assets, review your current estate planning documents. Everything may be fine, and we may not need to do anything. But if you did need to do anything, you can get good peace of mind knowing that you've made the right decision, at least looking at it. Because the reality is there's a lot of misinformation out there. My friend said this, or the internet said that, or my financial planner said this. It's only through a good elder law attorney like our law firm that is really going to be able to help you out and help cut through the BS to help make sure you're making the right decision for you. And because we're very proud of the work we've done and the many clients we've helped over the many years. Now, if you would like to book your free information gathering session, and we're going to email all this to you as well. Our website is chatwithdhc.com. And in that chat, we would be glad to talk with one of our team members who would talk with your situation, get you the information that's necessary to set up an appointment with us and see what, if anything, we can do to help you out. Again, we're going to email this for you, but here's our website. They'd be glad to schedule a consultation with one of our team members. Remember, you will know what estate planning documents you will need to have done. You'll know what action you need to take now, if any, and you'll have peace of mind knowing that you and your loved ones will be better prepared for the challenges of tomorrow. So this is what our goal is, meeting with us, meaning we've cut through all the BS, all the misinformation that's out there, review your situation and say, what can we do to make sure you're taken care of for the future? Also, this valid is offered for only 60 days. So if you would like to take advantage of the $200 off the consultation, then this offer is valid for only 60 days. So thank you very much. I am now going to go into the Q&A. And if you'd like to have any, I'm going to go through your questions right now. And if you have any other questions, you're still able to talk them off. So the first question is can we get a copy of the slides? The answer is yes. We're going to send you everything. We're going to send you this presentation. And I'm not sure, you can always reach out. We may be able to send you the full slide deck, but you also have our book that you're going to be able to download as well. And it takes this a lot more detail, really. So can you do the promissory note? So the next question we have is, can we do the promissory note if we're single? And the basic answer is no. So when I give the seminar, I remember years ago, I gave the seminar and I gave the example of the promissory note, and the promissory note planning, and essentially the Medicaid crisis planning is only available. It's available for both a single person and for a married couple, but essentially the promissory note is only available for a married couple. So essentially, Medicaid planning is different for a single person versus a married couple. And so we can just put it that way. There's still many ways to legally protect assets for a single person within the 5-year look back period, but essentially promissory notes are not one of them. Now, the next question I have is from the same person: is what if the irrevocable trust is set up but ends up being less than 5 years? And so let's go back to that example with Sally. And Sally was age 80 and she gave money to her kids. And let's say it's 3 years later, Sally had a terrible stroke. And in that situation, we created a transfer penalty for 5 years. It'd be very difficult. None of us are guaranteed tomorrow. So maybe she does have a stroke. There are a number of different situations we could figure out ways to help legally kind of maneuver. But a simple example of that is that if you set up a Medicaid irrevocable trust and there's a problem within the 5 years period, frankly speaking, the kids can give the money back to mom, the Medicaid applicant, and if they give the money back, then they undid the Medicaid transfer penalty. There's a lot to be said here, but essentially that's why we said is if you do set up an irrevocable trust, you have to trust your children, because you have to trust that if there were a problem within that 5-year period, they'd be willing to give the money back. And you can't sue them to get the money back. So you have to trust that whoever you give money to in the Medicaid irrevocable trust is they have to be willing to give up control. There's a lot to be said here, but there are legal ways around it if you do set up an irrevocable trust. But essentially, the kids have to be willing to give the money back. Now, the next question is a special needs trust created the same as an irrevocable trust? And essentially, a special needs trust is not the same thing as an irrevocable trust. And special needs trust planning is available in certain situations. But what sometimes people think about is they say, this is kind of a typical thing that we get sometimes. It's my mom's in a nursing home. Can't we give some money to a trust to protect it? And the basic answer is no, because the giving money away to a trust is part of the 5-year Medicaid look back period. Then sometimes people say, well, isn't there some type of special needs trust that we can give the money to? And essentially, not really. For the most part, there are exceptions to that rule, but special needs trusts, which are available in the right situation, for the most part, special needs trust planning is not a Medicaid asset protection device as an inheritance for the kids. So yes, there is a special needs trust that you can give the money to, but it's probably not what you're really thinking about. So again, sometimes people say, my mom's in a nursing home. I heard about, can't we just give all the money to a special needs trust? And the basic answer is not really. If you really want to do asset protection planning for the kids for an inheritance, then you really, you can do things within the 5-year look back period with a good elder law attorney. But if you're trying to do it before the 5-year look back period, then it's irrevocable trust planning, and it's not the same thing as special needs trust planning. So we have a next question. And our book gets into some details on that just a little bit. My 88-year-old mother lives with me and collects income as a retiree from the Department of Defense. She insists on paying for personal care, room, food, board expenses. Is this allowed or considered gifting or giving assets? So kind of in this example, hey, mom's a little older. She has pretty good income probably. And my mom is paying me to help mom out. And the basic answer is, anonymous attendee, that's probably not something that you need to worry about. What Medicaid is concerned about is giving money away to protect it from the nursing home. But if your mother is living with you, and I assume she was your mother, by the way, I'm sorry. If mom or dad or it is mom, yes. If mom is living with you and she is paying reasonable cost to help out, paying for food, shelter, clothing, just things like that, it's really not a gift for Medicaid purposes. She's legitimately paying you rent. Now, obviously, she couldn't pay you $20,000 a month, for example, but if she's paying you some reasonable amount of money, that's really nothing wrong with that. That's not a gift for Medicaid purposes. I wouldn't really be worried about that. So essentially what Medicaid is concerned with is they're really concerned about people trying to give money away to protect it from the nursing home. But if your mom is paying you to help her out, and if your mom, especially if your mom is living at home, that's okay. That's not really gifting. That is a payment for services. The next question is, what if someone has dementia and is not a power of attorney? Is the spouse able to make decisions on their behalf? And the answer is, well, kind of. If someone has dementia is not power of attorney, then there are some things that we see this sometimes, is their loved one, they never got a power of attorney for their spouse. And there are still legal ways to protect assets on certain scenarios. It can be problematic or difficult, but if, we have this happen every once in a while, mom and dad, they never went to an attorney. They never got power of attorney. And now mom has now got dementia and she can't even do a power of attorney anymore. But essentially, if they're the married couple, then there could still be legal ways to protect assets from the nursing home in the right situation. The next question is, will government Medicaid take money from my IRA on my death? And the basic answer is no. We already said this a little bit earlier, but we didn't touch on this. Is essentially if a single person, again, is the easiest way to describe it, is a single person gets on Medicaid, their assets are less than $2,000, but they could have $300,000 in IRAs. What happens if they die? Because again, that $300,000 in IRA is not a countable asset for Medicaid purposes. It's income only. Will government take that money from the IRA upon my death? And the basic answer is no. As long as you have a beneficiary designation on your IRA, then it's going to go to that beneficiary, and the government is not going to take it in the realm of a Medicaid lien or Medicaid payback. It's called payback in the world. If you Google it, you're going to get a lot of information, but essentially, it's not going to be applicable that much here in Florida. The next question we have is, mom sold her home located in New Jersey, all of her savings from the sale of her home. Are savings at risk for Medicaid or subject to the 5-year look-back period? And the answer is essentially yes. So that is a common scenario. The kids live in Florida, mom retires, she sells the home, she's now in Florida, and now you're Medicaid, and now you're looking to the Medicaid rules, and you're looking to the Medicaid look-back rules. If we're ever looking for long-term care Medicaid in the state of Florida, you're definitely now subject to the 5-year look-back rule with that. The next question is, does a Miller Trust take all the one's money beyond what's allowed for Medicaid? And I did mention this a little bit, but so the question is, does a Miller Trust take all of loved one's Medicaid beyond what's allowed for Medicaid? And this is not to say a complicated question, but it gets confusing. A Miller Trust in our world can also be known as a qualified income trust. And a qualified income trust, what we briefly talked about earlier, is it's a legal way around the income cap. And so, for instance, if your income is $3,000 per month and you're looking to get onto Medicaid, we already said that Medicaid has an income cap of $2,829 per month. So if your income is $3,000 per month, then you can't get on Medicaid. But if you set up a qualified income trust, which is also known as a Miller Trust, then as long as you place money into the income trust, then that is a legal way around the income cap. But essentially it's this, and it gets a little complicated, a little technical here and there, but essentially is this, is if you have a qualified income trust, also known as a Miller Trust, then all of your income still must go to the nursing home. So whether your income is $1,000 a month and you don't need an income trust, or whether your income is $3,000 a month, and if you're single, all of your income must go to the nursing home anyway, and you only get to keep $160 per month. So essentially, the Miller Trust or the income trust does not protect any income. It's the dumbest thing on earth. And I think the problem with the anonymous attendee that asks a question is you're trying to make sense of a very dumb question. It's not a dumb question, sir. It's a very dumb rule. But if your income exceeds the income cap, then you need an income trust, again, also known as a Miller Trust. But it doesn't take the income because all of your income essentially must flow to the nursing home anyway. So the money will flow through the income trust, then it'll flow out of the income trust, and it's dumb as possibly can be. But as we say, is them's the rules. If you're looking at creating a special needs trust for your disabled child, Excellent will be glad to help out with that. What a special needs trust is God forbid, if something happened to you when you die, some children or relatives or anyone you want could be receiving government benefits. And sometimes the government benefits, not necessarily Medicaid, long-term care Medicaid, although that is possible. If you have a loved one that is on Medicaid or some type of Medicaid benefits, then you probably don't want to leave money outright to that child. You probably want to leave money in a special needs trust for their benefit. That is called a third party special needs trust, and we're glad to help out because we don't want to take, if you left money in for their benefit, unless it's a special needs trust, it's going to take them off of Medicaid, which is not a good idea. So we're glad to help out with that, Amanda. Yes, we'd be glad to help you out. My brother is disabled, getting $820 a month from Social Security, has a special needs trust. How much can he take from the special needs trust to pay for rent and household utilities without losing Medicaid? So that's a very specific question that, frankly speaking, I'm not truly able to answer. It's kind of a complicated question. But the question is, for instance, is this person has a brother who is on disability, basically they're on SSI is what it sounds like, supplemental security income. They're on SSI, which is definitely a Medicaid program. And he's got a special needs trust set up for his benefit. How do we take money out of it without messing up his Medicaid? There's actually a number of different rules, and it's very possible that the attorney helps set up the special needs trust could give you consultation on that, or our office is glad to consult. There are certainly legal ways to spend the money from the trust for your brother's benefit without making Medicaid, but frankly speaking, the answer gets pretty complicated pretty quickly. I have another question is the Medicaid cap the same for all states? And the basic answer is no. I think it's 18 or 19 states have an income cap. Again, it's the dumbest thing on earth, people. You're trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. But the state of Florida, and I think it's 18 or 19 states have it. They have an income cap. It doesn't make any sense legally. It's literally there to keep people from getting Medicaid, and that's why it exists. But it's only 18 or 19 states that have an income cap. And essentially, to clarify that question, is each state does their own rules from a Medicaid perspective. So the state of Florida, I know the Medicaid rules for the state of Florida backwards and forwards, but essentially every other state's rules are going to be completely different. I'll have no idea what they really are because each state implements their own rules. So each state is certainly, again, close to 20 states have income cap rules, but each state's going to be individual done. And we have one last question. If one makes too much money in Social Security and pension to get Medicaid, what other options are to get on Medicaid besides the Miller Trust? And essentially, there's only two types of trust. If you're needing long-term care Medicaid, which is again Medicaid in the nursing home, assisted living, or in home, then there's only two ways to get around the income cap. It's either a qualified income trust or a pooled trust. You can Google both of those things. You're also able to look at our website as well. It goes into some detail on this. But essentially, each situation is going to be different. So if you're trying to get care at home, it doesn't really matter because you're allowed to keep all of your income at home for Medicaid purposes. But if your income's over the cap, and the only other way around the Miller Trust is a pooled trust as well. But either way, it's not a way of protecting income for your own purposes, because for instance, if you're in the nursing home, all of your income must go to the nursing home anyway. But there's a legal way around it, but it's not really great, especially if you're in the nursing home. So that is really it. That's a lot of great questions. I did have someone say, very helpful seminar. Thank you so much. So Kelly, thank you very much for the kind words there. Had great people here and great questions. And so thank you very much for your time. So thank you very much for attending our webinar on long-term care Medicaid. We look forward to the opportunity to help you. So thank you very much for coming out. And then we'll be sending all this out for you for further clarification to help you out. And we're glad and thank you so much for attending. And we hope you learned a lot of information here. So thank you very much and have a good night.